If this goes really good, we should just drop out of college and move to LA.
Become podcast.
Professional podcast.
Our podcast becomes real.
Hey everyone, this is Julianna Thomas with
Harris.
Zoey.
Helina.
and you're listening to The Shade Theory, a cultural podcast that breaks down identity, value, and the way we see the world.
In this episode, we'll be talking all about how colorist ideologies and discriminatory practices impact various social institutions.
We've got some segments coming up on music, media, beauty, and sports, so stay tuned.
All right, so let's start off the show with some music. Hip-hop is often understood as a form of resistance within the Black community. According to Trisha Rose, it's a Black political and artistic expression that comes in response to the marginalization of Black communities within the American society. But even within the genre that is inherently challenging the dominant norms, it's not immune to existing structures of inequality. And honestly, in many cases, it reproduces hierarchies within the Black community. So to look at this further, I am focusing the segment on a big recurring pattern within hip-hop lyrics.
And by reoccurring pattern, we mean something that shows up across different artists, different eras, and even different subgenres of rap.
Exactly. One of the clearest patterns is how skin tone is explicitly mentioned when artists talk about attraction and desirability. So let's take a look at the first song.
Whoa, I got me a red bone fetish. Whoa, that made my dark bitch jealous. Whoa, straight to the curve she headed. Whoa.
Yeah, what stands out is how casual it is. It's not framed as something that's controversial or offensive. It's just dropped into the verse as a preference. But here, it's doing way more than that. This is not just preference. He's assigning value based on skin tone, putting dark-skinned and light-skinned women against each other. This ties directly into the roots of colorism, as stated in the presentation, The History of Colorism and Hairism in Black Communities by Professor Godlin. It's the idea that proximity to whiteness equals beauty, femininity, and worth. Even if it sounds like a personal preference, it's reinforcing a much bigger hierarchy.
And for context, red bone and yellow bone, or just yellow, are terms used within African American communities to refer to lighter-skinned people, often with red or yellow undertones. It is often used interchangeably nowadays.
Yeah, we'll need that definition for this next clip.
I like my bitches red bone, ice fat, jello, light skin, yellow, iced out, hello.
It's almost like a checklist, like he's listing traits of women the same way you would describe a product. It's all reduced to categories instead of seeing women as a whole people.
Yeah, and that's when the ranking comes in. Within this checklist, certain traits carry more weight. This directly relates to the reading Beyond Black and White But Still in Color by Lander in 2017. Essentially, this desirability for light skin shows up in marriage, where light-skinned women have highest advantages and prospects. Light-skinned isn't just mentioned, it is positioned at the top of the hierarchy of desirability.
And here's the next song that takes it a step further.
Beautiful black woman, I bet that bitch look better red.
This is where it becomes extremely explicit. It's not even implied anymore, it's a direct comparison. He starts by acknowledging a beautiful black woman, but immediately sidesteps by saying that she looked better if she was lighter. Blackness is treated like something that needs to be changed to reach the ideal of being light-skinned.
And this idea isn't new. It's tied to the long history where light skin was associated with privilege, access, and beauty. So when a line like this shows up in a song, it's not just a one-off comment. It's tapping into the entire history and reproducing it into modern text.
All right, and let's move to the most extreme example.
Hey, what on yellow bone? I don't want no black bitch. I'm already black, I don't need no black bitch.
Yeah, at this point, it's not even coded as a preference. It is just an outright rejection. It is a flat exclusion of dark-skinned women.
Right? And what's striking is that he acknowledges his own blackness. That line, I'm already black, I don't need no black, kind of frames blackness as something excessive, like something that needs to be balanced out rather than embraced.
Okay, so putting this all together, it's clearly not just some random lyrics or personal preference. What we're seeing is a pattern where skin tone is tied directly to desirability, and light skin is repeatedly placed at the top of that hierarchy.
And that important part is how widely consumed these types of songs are. These aren't just niche songs. These are tracks with millions of streams and massive audiences.
Exactly. And once it's out there, it doesn't just stay in the music. It starts to shape how people think. Basically, what begins as lyrics can turn into real expectations.
Exactly. It's not just lyrics in a vacuum, it's part of a larger system where language and imagery work together to normalize colorism in everyday culture.
But isn't that all rap is, though?
Not at all. Hip hop isn't one thing, it's not something monolithic. While we've looked at examples that sort of reinforce colorism, there are also artists and movements that challenge those same ideas.
For example, in Complexion, A Zulu Love, Kendrick Lamar literally says that complexion don't mean a thing. He directly pushes back against that hierarchy and the idea that skin tone is a determination of value or beauty.
So, this is like hip hop correcting itself in real time, challenging the same ideas it sometimes reflects.
Right. Then we have songs like Brown Skin Girl that fully center and celebrate the beauty of brown and dark skin.
So, it's not one sided. Hip hop can reinforce these ideas, but it can also be an active resistance of them in a way.
Exactly. It's like both things at once. Hip hop reflects lived experiences, but also shapes it.
And these lyrics don't exist in isolation. They circulate, they get repeated, and they have an influence on how people understand beauty and identity.
So, really, hip hop isn't just music. It's a part of how ideas about beauty and desirability get built, reinforced, and sometimes challenged.
Okay, so now that we heard all about rap music and how that impacts beauty ideals, we're going to get into media. So welcome to Let's Get Real, your hotspot for film and television news. And today's question is, should all skin folk be kinfolk? Earlier last month, a verified Children of Blood and Bone Instagram account sprung up and gained a lot of traction online. In the post, fans learned that their beloved young adult science fiction novel was getting a live-action adaptation. For context, the book is rooted in West African mythology, Nigerian culture, and Yoruba heritage. So this is like a huge moment for the diaspora cinema. Now, back to the post. Between jokes about wearing gele to the attire to cinemas and African pride, there were a slew of angry comments, especially about the casting decisions. After sifting through the most popular threads, I found how ethno-nationalism was posing as colorism to bring attention to the lightest cast member, Amandla Steinberg.
For our new viewers, ethno-nationalism is an ideology where a person closely associates their identity with their national ancestral heritage.
Right. And this thinking pattern can manifest from playful competitions like the Jollof Wars or activism such as the Black Power movement, but it can also range into more harmful ethno-divisions like the Diaspora Wars.
This sounds important and all, but what does a sci-fi movie have to do with the complex social interactions?
More than you think. Look at this comment strand that received over 1,000 likes. One viewer, in response to complaints about Amandla not being Nigerian, stated, also casting a light-skinned biracial for a character that's supposed to face colorism due to her dark skin. We can't even win when we win. Shaking my head.
I remember seeing that post. It hits different knowing that Amanda Steinberg's character was described as having dark copper skin and amber eyes in the book.
Yep. And that disconnection between literary descriptions and casting is what fueled the discourse in most of the comment section. But I think this conversation is deeper than skin deep. For Amandla, color wasn't the only factor at play here. Let's look at her co-stars and have a breakdown. The film's 4 other main characters are also played by popular stars: Tuso Bedu, Damson Idris, Viola Davis, and Idris Elba. And what do these 4 people have in common that Amandla doesn't? They each have explicit and recent hereditary links to the African continent, and they happen to match the skin tone of their characters. For example, Tuso Bedu is received much praise in the comment section because she's South African and she's playing a character that's described having dark onyx skin. Damson Idris, on the other hand, is British Nigerian, and he's playing Prince Annan, who also has copper skin. The list goes on, such as Viola Davis, who has a West African ancestry, playing a character that, you guessed it, has dark brown skin, and Idris Elba having West African heritage and playing a darker skin character.
The conversation online isn't really about skin color. It's about deciding what qualifies an actor to play certain ethnic roles.
Exactly. It's about balancing an actor's casting liberty, but also their vow to having ethnic accuracy.
And FYI, this isn't the first time Amandla has been in the hot seat. Her role in The Hate U Give was also criticized for lightening the darker-skinned characters. Online Reddit strands commented how everything she says and does is performative, and how they're super, super, super disappointed in that they casted a light-skinned actress when the book describes the main character having very dark skin.
Uh-huh. And that discourse just added fuel to the fire in this current situation. Amanda not only missed the mark in terms of skin color, but her poor public perception and repeated lack of cultural ties often makes her a begrudged outlier in a sea of brown-skinned African people.
That's interesting, especially since we know how impactful online spaces can be for disagreement. A Wiley 2020 journal about digital nationalism actually talks about this, stating how the growing polarization of public debate, where more extreme opinions get greater visibility, can fuel great divisiveness in the community.
And that, my friend, is the catch-22 of this entire debate. On one hand, we have the valid concern and desire to protect one's language, culture, and values on the big screen. Yet, the fact that this debate is happening publicly raises concerns down the road. Do y'all remember You, Me, and Tuscany that just came out in April? Okay, period. Well, that movie was more than just a cute rom-com. It was a test for whether future black rom-coms could even stand a chance in the theatrical market. Nina Lee, a writer of romance movies and independent filmmaker, posted on X stating that studios won't purchase her finished script until they see how You, Me, and Tuscany performs in theaters.
Wow, so the success of a large budget film can impact up-and-coming filmmakers?
Absolutely. And this is the dilemma I face with the whole children and bone situation. We know how bonded solidarity and ethno-nationalism are coping mechanisms for national ostracization and exclusion. But us black people can't afford to disagree like this.
It's like when we're publicly divided, we risk scaring off the bigwigs who hold the money and resources to make the stories happen on account of them not wanting to be canceled.
Exactly, especially when organizations like the Think Tank of Inclusion and Equity note that having more fantasy and sci-fi films is progressive for African American media, and we need to do everything in our power to help get these stories told.
I think the black community and African diaspora needs to find other, less divisive ways to signal when we're displeased with casting directions.
So, in conclusion, is Amandla a few shades too bright and maybe just a few generations too far removed from Africa? Maybe. But can we let that stop the groundbreaking potential of this film? No.
Hi, my name is Helina, and for my segment, The Business of Beauty, I'll be exploring colorism in media both on and off screen and how these portrayals extend into contemporary society. It is no secret that becoming a breakout actor/actress in Hollywood is not easy, but as an African American, the chances of success are slimmer. What isn't openly discussed is that as a black person, your level of success in this field are closely associated with how you look. To help shine light on this subject, I wanted to bring up Zendaya, a world-renowned actress who has used her platform to speak out against colorism. She gave herself the title of Hollywood's acceptable version of a black girl due to her lighter-skinned complexion and looser hair texture. Because of this, she was more marketable to industries and given more opportunities for success.
The use of her platform to spread awareness is commendable, but unfortunately, this is common amongst many different fields. Previous research has found that lighter-skinned black people's greater perceived proximity to whiteness may grant them the opportunity to amass more wealth than darker-skinned black people.
Many darker-skinned actresses have also reported being underpaid and undervalued, such as Viola Davis stating that she only receives a fraction of what her coworkers are paid. Although she is often compared to actresses such as Meryl Streep and Sigourney Weaver, she is nowhere near paid as much as them, highlighting the pay disparities between these actresses, which also shows how colorism seeps into the economic aspect of these actresses.
I've noticed the roles handed to darker-skinned women often have the same undertones. It's usually a role of struggle or hardship without a love interest or a secondary supportive role to a lighter-skinned main character.
These roles perpetuate the idea that darker-skinned women are not desirable enough to be love interests or important enough to be given storylines.
As opportunities for success are constantly handed to lighter-skinned actresses, we push a narrative of the women who should be seen as worthy of success and desirable, which in turn perpetuates a standard acted out by society. In spaces where beauty is measured and marketed, such as nightclubs, colorism is often visible in the way these businesses promote themselves. Whether through flyers, online ads, or video clips, the women featured are often lighter-skinned with noticeable lack of diversity. At first, this pattern might seem coincidental, But when looking at these marketing techniques as a whole, it becomes clear that many clubs use lighter-skinned women because they are often viewed as more desirable, exotic, and palatable to a wider audience. To shine light on this subject, I wanted to discuss a video of Cardi B where she talks about the operation of colorism inside nightclub life and states that darker-skinned women are not given opportunities in nightclub life due to the fetishization of lighter-skinned women.
When watching this video, she also talks about how previous men she's dated who have openly stated they do not date black, specifically darker-skinned women, shows how colorism is internalized and perpetuated as a preference.
What also needs to be acknowledged is how these beauty preferences impact women with Afrocentric features. In the article, Why African American Women Try to Obtain Good Hair, it explains that many African American women were taught that nappy hair is a badge of shame, reinforced by the concept of good hair, which refers to longer, looser textures and features that are consistently praised and prioritized in media. This not only shapes beauty standards, but it also pressures black women to conform in order to be seen as acceptable or desirable.
And that's where everything comes full circle. When colorism is normalized through media, it becomes internalized by individuals. Businesses then capitalize on these preferences by continuing to promote lighter-skinned women, which ultimately reinforces and sustains the cycle of colorism. Hi, I'm Harris, and in this segment called Media Language Breakdown, I will be diving into another form of media, sports commentary, and how it perpetuates colorism, hairism, and overall racial stereotypes. First, I'm going to show a clip that is fictional but very pertinent in how colorism manifests in sports commentary in the NFL.
Wow, he is so explosive. He is just raw talent. What a physical specimen. What a beast. John, he has to be one of the best route runners in the league. Not the best athlete, but he's crafty and has great leadership skills.
Now, I can see a pattern in this, in which black athletes are described according to their physicality, and lighter-skinned or white athletes are described according to their mental capacity or intelligence. In the article from our sports discussion called Skin in the Game, Colorism and Stereotypes in College Basketball, their results revealed that commentators are more likely to highlight the mental abilities and performance of lighter-skinned athletes while focusing on the physical characteristics of darker-skinned athletes. And really, one real-life example they gave was one that attributed non-human characteristics to a darker-skinned player when an announcer said, "He still isn't 100%, but a real tiger."
Great point. I think this also goes back to the damaging perception of the less than human stereotype that was spread all throughout post-Civil War U.S. with racist films like The Birth of a Nation, which portrayed African Americans as, quote, subhuman and bestial, unquote.
The lack of remarks towards darker-skinned athletes about their intelligence could affect young African American youth that sees it and may think, oh, I don't have to try in school. I just need to make it as an athlete because that's the only thing I'm told I can succeed in by sports analysis, which isn't the case at all.
Yeah, and I think there's been this sort of phenomenon where African American youth think that sports are the only way to go to college or be successful. I think that one factor that reinforces this idea is how sports media describe the darker-skinned athletes as very physical individuals.
Yes, I agree. And one reason I chose this clip is because it is a reoccurring pattern that happens in all sports, especially basketball and football. I watch the NFL all the time. There is a clear difference when sports analysts are talking about Lamar Jackson, where they talk about his speed and his how aggressive he is, and then they talk about Patrick Mahomes and how he can run routes very quickly, and he uses his knowledge, his football knowledge, quote unquote, all the time. But moving on, I wanted to discuss another clip from an actual game that really stood out to me when I was surfing the internet. That is way more overt than the first clip.
Girls from Rutgers, man, they got tattoos and
some hardcore hoes.
That's a nappy-headed hose there, I'm going to tell you that now. Man, that's some, ooh. And the girls from Tennessee, they all look cute, so kind of like a, I don't know.
Spike Lee thing.
Yeah.
The Jigabos versus the Wannabes.
Yeah.
That movie that he had.
Yeah, was it?
Yeah. I stumbled across this clip totally by accident, and it was part of a larger article called Crafty versus Sneaky, How Racial Bias in Sports Broadcasting Hurts Everyone by Karen Given. The clip is from 2007, but I think that's not that long ago for it to not still be relevant. It is more overt than what is said today, but the hairism and colorism perpetuated is still seen in more covert ways today in female sports.
This also shows how hairism can be found in sports commentary when he calls the African American players nappy. Calling the women hoes also goes back to the sexualization of African American women as well.
Yes, and that is the first thing I noticed. He also used a highly offensive racist slur to describe these women and called the white women cute, implying that African American players were not, which goes back to how we have all talked about the beauty standard in class and how that affects colorism, especially towards darker-skinned women.
Yeah, I watched the clip further, and he does apologize for what he said, but how sorry was he really? This clip is a great example of why we need to be pushing for more conversations on hairism, colorism, and intersectionality in our society. Because if he was so comfortable saying this on national television, what more can he and others be saying behind closed doors?
Exactly. So we can see that colorism and hairism can be shown in less traditional media compared to what I would think of in social media, but this sport commentary can still be just as damaging for darker skinned marginalized groups, especially youth. I also think the second clip is a great example of intersectionality and how even when these women were playing a basketball game, they were expected to have their hair done and care about their physical appearance.
Exactly, whereas no commentator is commenting on how the male athletes look when they're competing.
Yes, and even though the second clip was from 2007 and was very overt in its hairism and racism, sports analysts still talk about African American female athletes in similar ways. For example, the whole Angel Reese versus Caitlin Clark pitted against each other, and how they talk about Angel Reese in a damaging light, and Caitlin Clark is just this angel basically in the WNBA. And then the backlash that Simone Biles even received for her hair during the Olympics.
So this has been the latest episode of The Shade Theory.
We learned about how hip-hop perpetuates the system of colorism in America, but also ways that it works specifically to undo these biases.
We also revealed how ethno-nationalism can parade itself as colorism, which further divides cultural communities and jeopardizes minority representation in films.
We discussed the impact that colorism has on beauty standards influencing companies, marketing strategies, economic discrepancies, and opportunities for success.
And finally, we talked about how sports commentary can perpetuate colorism and hairism in both overt and covert ways.
So what we are left with is this. Colorism isn't just a few isolated moments in music, media, or sports. It's a pattern that moves across all of them, shaping who gets seen, valued, and appreciated.
I think the real question lies in whether we continue to accept these as normal or work to challenge the biases that are so ingrained in society.
Bye!
Bye, y'all.